interesting because it takes Wendy coming in for her to be like, oh, there's potential here for me to actually kind of be seen in this new way.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for coming in. Nice to see you, Elvis.
Hi, how are you?
Is it nerve-wracking just walking into a room full of people you don't know? Like, okay, we're on.
I'm loving it. The adrenaline.
There is a lot of adrenaline. There's a lot of... Which button is she on here? Here we go. There you are. I found your button. I mean, you know what I mean. Oh, my gosh. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you.
And when we heard about Peter Pan and Wendy on Disney Plus this Friday, we're like, okay, even an old cranky guy like me, I can relate. It's been around that long. I mean, the story has. But when they say, hey, would you like to audition or would you like the part of Tinkerbell? Your first thought is what?
My first thought was, oh, you're joking. Like, I don't know. I think the thing is it came so out of the blue. We were in the middle of the pandemic. We hadn't even gone back to shooting Grownish that when you get a call and you have like 3 of your agents on, it's like, oh, Tinkerbell, ? I don't know if I even processed it as a real offer. So I think after like about 5 minutes, I realized, oh no, they're actually being serious. And then it got really exciting because it was just a real full circle moment. And I mean, when do you get to play a fairy?
Yeah.
Oh, I do every day.
Stop it. That's in real life.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Did you have to audition for it or did they just say, we want you?
It was an offer, but it started with really just a series of conversations. So they had reached out, but then I ended up talking to the director, David Lowery, and that was so fun. I was in the middle of taking an Old English class, and he was in the middle of wrapping up The Green Knight, so we ended up having a lot to talk about in regards to Old English.
I need to take an Old English class.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
It's crazy because people think it's Middle English, but it's like a different language.
Wait, there's a middle language? See, you've lost us.
No, it was my hardest class at Harvard,
Well, okay.
I have to say.
At Harvard.
Well, talk about it, though. I mean, you get good pizza there, so you cannot complain.
Yeah.
But I know, so Old English. I mean, give us a sentence or two that would bring us up to speed on that.
All I remember is the phrase "the king said," which is not even a full sentence, but that's "Se kuninga quieth."
That's not English.
It's a different language. But anyway,
It's more English than the English we speak, probably.
yeah, neither here nor there. But anyway, we had a lot to talk about. It was a really fun first conversation because you just get 2 nerds on the phone.
I know, but how fabulous, because it's rich in history.
Yes.
There's stories, lessons we learned from, dear God, back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there. Even I wasn't there. So, Yara, after you know, okay, it's solid, we're signed, I'm going to play Tinkerbell. Mm-hmm. You go take a shower and you have your private shower moments. Like those moments where your head just kind of meanders and you kind of go down these holes and things. Mm-hmm. What were you thinking? Like, what are they going to do? Tie me up to a string and fly me across the room? Or...
Yeah, I definitely, was initially nervous because they were like, okay, you're going to get like a Cirque du Soleil trainer. Like, you're going to be on strings. It's going to be a whole ordeal. And it was exciting, but I was like, geez, I can't even cartwheel. Like, are they gonna be like, actually, JK, this girl can't cartwheel. Like, that's it. I don't know what it was. I got really paranoid about if I didn't live up to the expectations of my Cirque du Soleil trainer.
Wow.
It ended up being that because it was all motion capture that I didn't have to actually be on strings because the visual effects team did their magic and made it look like I was flying. But yeah, I think it was a moment of excitement and then a total moment of panic.
Yeah, those shower moments, we should not be allowed those.
Yeah.
So how'd you do on the set today, Yara? Well, I flew into a wall.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do that at all. Thank God.
I feel like your life is fascinating and amazing and a life that I would want. You started obviously with Blackish and then you transitioned to Grownish. So you've grown up on TV and then you go to Harvard. Are people at Harvard impressed by somebody who's done all of that? Or is it like, oh, we're at Harvard. We're all coders anyway.
I think it's kind of the latter. People are not sweating me at Harvard. And sure, I mean, I have a group of close friends that give me my props for like, oh, cool, congrats. The Tinkerbell announcement came out my junior year, and I was in class while that was happening.
So cool.
Yeah, and so yeah, people will give me my props, but quite honestly, it's really more so that everyone has their own thing going on. And so I remember my freshman year, it more so leaned into just kind of being ignored on campus, where I'd be out there waving at folks, trying to make friends.
Yo.
Yeah.
I know, but what an experience. And you're still young and you have, wow, what adventures you still have ready to go.
Michelle Obama wrote your recommendation letter. Like, did you just text her up on the phone? Hey, I need a letter. Can you help me out?
So did my AP Calc teacher. I notably was the only person that got an AP Calc recommendation. but
everyone here is going AP Cal.
Yeah. No.
I tried to forget all of that.
Now, are you friends with the Obamas?
I mean, friendly. I think it was really wonderful in the last year of the administration. I did a lot of work with their educational programs and initiatives. And so, I was in D.C. quite often. But yeah, what a lovely family. I think what's so funny, we always note the fact that we never met Sasha or Malia there because they were always in school. So we'd be at these events, but they were always in school. And it wasn't until we were actually in class together that it was oh, hi. I've known your parents for a while.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
So don't start with me. I know you.
It wasn't a threat. It was more so very exciting.
I love during my travels recently, we took last week off. I was in Europe, and you go to the bookstores.
Where?
We went to Italy, where I know, just a bunch of wine and pasta.
Truffle hunting. Don't
and
forget the truffle hunting.
Very, very.
Wait, do they have pigs for that? Is that real?
Actually, they use dogs.
They use dogs.
Yeah, truffle dogs, and it was an amazing experience.
What kind of breed is a truffle dog? That sounds so bougie.
It is.
And that's what we said.
Really cute.
It sounds bougie on this
Forget a
end.
Maltipoo. I have a truffle dog.
But when you're there, when you're on the farm, it doesn't seem bougie at all.
Okay.
I mean, it's when they took the truffles. Our dogs found it. I'm sure they ended up on the market somewhere in Florence with a lot of money. But anyway, one of the things I loved about travel is going to the bookstores in the airports, and Michelle Obama's book still right there under bestsellers around the world.
Yeah,
and so
the light we carry.
Exactly. And her message, even during Obama's his term, her message was always uniquely hers, and we always thought that was just pretty strong to know that she wrote a recommendation for you. Yeah. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way, Yara Shahidi is here. Yara is, of course, Tinkerbell in Peter Pan and Wendy, which premieres Disney Plus this Friday. Okay, let's talk about Tinkerbell, because this is a story we all grew up with. And I never really stopped to think, who was Tinkerbell? And then these conspiracy theories come out.
Oh, yeah. Have you read any of the conspiracy theories about Peter Pan?
Wait, no.
That, in fact, Peter Pan is the angel of death. And that is why...
Whoa.
Yeah, think about this. That's why none of the kids ever grow up, because he is taking the children when they die off to Neverland, which is kind of like heaven. And, in fact, Captain Hook hates him because he is the angel of death, and that's why they fight.
Of course, this is not true.
That's crazy.
Could be true.
Now she's like, should I have taken this role?
Yeah. I'm thinking everything.
But when you see this story, when you hear this story, to me, it was a lot of things that were nowhere near, the Prince of Death. I mean, there are great issues about, these are all orphans, correct? I mean, they had no...
Boys.
Yeah, I think that was the interesting thing. There's a really interesting storyline about families in it. Because,
there you go.
And there's the Lost Girls now, too. Not just
there's
boys
some
this
Lost
time.
Girls in there. It's a really cool group of kids, but I think that's what I liked about, being a part of this remake, was that they took the central theme of never growing up, which we've seen in every iteration of Peter Pan, and said, let's kind of explode this. So let's figure out why Hook actually grew up. Let's figure out why Peter never grew up. Let's figure out how all the Lost Boys got here, and the fact that we assume they don't have families. But is that true?
What a
intrigue. Okay, so specifically Tinkerbell.
Yes.
In your mind, the different layers of Tinkerbell, what do they all add up to?
Well, I think for a long time, Tinkerbell has just kind of been a sidekick. And what I love in this is that in really subtle ways, she doesn't have to give a monologue about how she's a new and improved Tinkerbell or anything. But she's really just such a part of the adventure. And she's really protective of these kids. And you can tell that she's kind of tangentially been involved in this Peter Pan and Hook beef for a long time. But I think what I love most is that the central arc for her, at least in my opinion, was what does it feel like to be so unheard? And it ended up allowing me to then kind of play in the space of being super exaggerated, but also feeling like I have some sort of grounded truth and some sort of thing that Tinkerbell's trying to achieve. She just wants to be heard.
Talk about it.
Well, it's more so that you have a character that just kind of chimes. She really doesn't speak all that much. And then you have Peter, which at times just is totally misinterpreting her. So her best friend does not understand a word that she's saying. You know, she just keeps talking and he'll say, oh, Tink said insert whatever she absolutely did not say. And so it's interesting because it takes Wendy coming in for her to be like, oh, there's potential here for me to actually kind of be seen in this new way. And you know, I like the fact that it happened in these really small moments. It wasn't anything huge. It wasn't anything big that happens where, you know, Tinkerbell then takes a stand against Peter Pan.
Right.
But just through this relationship with Wendy, you end up seeing like a whole other side of who she is.
So may I assume that the word read number for Tinkerbell was maybe less than some of the other characters?
It's the most I've ever spoken.
Oh, really?
She just doesn't shut up. No, I'm
Really?
kidding.
What?
I'm kidding. No, I truly, we on set would put lines on the page just so I had an idea of what I was supposed to be intending to say.
Right.
But otherwise, going back to Old English, I spoke a mix of Farsi, Spanish, English, and Old English.
Oh, dear God.
Like, no, now this sounds way more impressive than it is. It was absolute gibberish because we were just taking like a word here and a word there. But I'd have like my sentence in English of like what I meant to say. And then I'd have a ton of random words, which was like my version of saying it. And then when you actually see me in the trailer, I sound like I'm making bell sounds and chimes.
But Yara, you know, I think the magic thing here, and I'm sure you've thought about this, is how powerful of an actor you are to have the least amount of words, but the most amount of movement, the most amount of moving dialogue of some sorts. I mean, Tinkerbell is a hero, you know?
That was really exciting. I mean, it was definitely a challenge as an actor because my other characters truly never stop talking.
Never.
Like Zoe does voiceover, she talks to camera, and then she's the #1 talker on the show. So all it is, I lose my voice like twice a season because she just never shuts up. But
I would assume in real life, people who talk too much usually say less, and people who talk less usually are saying much more.
yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, so it was interesting to go from a character who, like, I love just how expressive Zoe is, but Tinkerbell is expressive in a whole other way. And like you're saying, I mean, I've never been so aware of my face muscles in my life because, you know, I didn't have words to be like, oh, well, what I mean is, all I had was like, I can either choose an eyebrow or I can choose to make a certain face with my mouth,
Wow.
but that's about the extent of it.
Yeah.
And then even with motion capture, you go and do all the body work separately. So, let me not touch this equipment.
You can beat the hell out of it. It's okay.
But all the face stuff you do separately, and you have to be really still with your body. And so that was another weird kind of moment of saying, like, I had to kind of figure out what the flying and all that looked like because by the time we got to the face capture, I had to be so still that my range of motion was like I could kind of push my hands up a little bit if I wanted to be a little expressive or get some motion in there, but otherwise you just have to sit there so all the cameras can capture you.
When you watched it back for the first time, were you amazed at how they put it all together?
Yeah, I think my first thought was I made it into the film because
There's that.
everything I did happened so separately from everyone else. But my second thought was it was absolutely incredible to see because I, of course, got glimpses throughout the process of what the character would look like or what the dress looked like or what my ears would look like. And I even got a sample of flying, but I didn't get anything close to the magic of when I sat down and said, oh my God, that's a real character floating around.
Wow.
And it looks like I was flying in the sky all these days.
Beautiful. I wish we really could.
One of these days we'll figure it out. I think one of the most magical things about this is that you're the first black actor to play Tinkerbell. And to me, as a brown girl growing up, I didn't ever see that. And now you get to be that. How exciting is that to you?
Oh, I mean, it's so exciting because it's really full circle. My first jobs I ever did were primarily print jobs for Disney when I was like 5, and I would get dressed up in the different costumes. I was like Kim Possible, and I have a cutout of me as Cinderella. But again, I was always the black version of these characters, and so to think, I wouldn't have never thought that at 20 I would be playing the next iteration of Tinkerbell and just be Tinkerbell. And now there's a whole generation of kids where it's like, well, this is just what Tinkerbell looks
Right.
like.
And it's not going to be weird to them because you open the door and it just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
that.
I was always, I think, going from being the like alternative version of to just the version.
Exactly. There's a difference. And we were
Yeah.
talking earlier before you came in about this same topic when it comes to Broadway plays.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Yeah, when we went to see Frozen on Broadway,
Oh.
at one point they had I don't know if it was Elsa or Anna, but one was black and one was white. And it was just wonderful to see, and it was just accepted. And
Right.
that's the way it should be.
It reminds me of Brandy's Cinderella with
Yes.
Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Like, there was no questions about
Right.
how the prince came from white mom, black dad. No, black mom, white dad.
Oh, they have to
I'm like-
explain it.
They did not an ounce of explanation. But I love the fact that as a kid, I mean, the bigger deal is the fairy tales and the magic. And so sometimes I think as adults we get so caught up in logistics and trying to figure out, well, how does this change the fairy tale? But when you're talking about magic and fantasy, it truly does not matter. If you build a great enough world and a big enough world, that just becomes, you know, just a part of the story.
Oh my God! Say all that again. No, the good thing is we can rewind and play back because it was beautifully said. By the way, Yara Shahidi is here. Of course, Peter Pan and Wendy is premiering on Disney Plus Friday. We'll all be watching. And here's as I was listening to you, I don't know if anyone agrees with this. And this is not I'm not trying to be Mr. Nancy Negative. When I hear you talk about all that goes into all the computer graphics, and you have to stand still because they're going to put a body on you that is flying, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like hearing a magician telling you how he sawed the guy in half.
Yeah.
And I just want to see it. You know,
Right.
So when I watch a film, if I start to, my mind goes away from what I'm watching and experiencing and goes into the, oh, here's how they created this on a computer. I'm like, no, slap it out. No, stay with the magic. So when have you seen the whole
Yeah,
the movie?
I've seen it a couple times.
Okay, so the first time you saw it, knowing that they plugged you in here and plugged you in there, took you out here, it was something that you saw it. What was your feeling? Like, how did it make you feel?
I think I was really impressed because I had no clue what I was going to walk into. I mean, of course, I have the ultimate faith in David Lowery as a filmmaker and know that he makes just great things. But still, I had no clue really how I was going to be plugged in. I had seen storyboards and I'd filmed the stuff, but ultimately it was up to them once they got all the footage to figure out where Tinkerbell was going. But I think what I like is as someone that's very similar, and I'm actually kind of miserable to watch movies with because I'm always thinking about that stuff. I'm always like, why'd they CGI that tree? Why not get a real tree?
That's going to be a long movie.
Like, I'm always that type of person. But what I loved was truly, it was one of the first times I didn't get caught up in it. I think Tinkerbell is such a little magical character that it makes sense. How fast she's moving makes sense. Like, it makes sense that what you're seeing is a little bit extra reality. There's a little pizzazz on it. And so I think there was a nice mix of practical effects because on the other side, you know, Alexander, Ever, the kids, they're actually up on strings flying around. And and so they were very intentional about when they would be leaning into visual effects, why they would be, because, you know, I also have a trail of pixie dust and you can never see me move really because I move so quickly that you see me buzz around, but I would have just gotten motion sick being on strings while they drag me across the screen. But yeah, they were very intentional. So a lot of the sets they built crazy cave sets, crazy 3-story ships. And so because of that balance, I feel like I personally never got caught up in like the visual effects versus practical effects thing.
Yeah.
And this weekend, let's all strive to leave a trail of pixie dust.
Yes.
I always try.
Yeah.
I know. I try every weekend to make that my goal. It is such an honor to have you here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Yara Shahidi, your story sounds as magical as the actual Peter Pan and Wendy, premiering on Disney Plus this Friday. It sounds like an event that we can all have some fun watching. And thank you for coming to see us.
Oh, thank
Yara
you.
Shahidi, everyone.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.